Hey everybody, you've probably heard us talking this fall about our 3 engagement goals for giving. It's not a number amount, it's an engagement amount. So the first one is this. Maybe you are new to Salt House, but you're like, no, this is my home. These are my people. And you haven't considered giving before. We're looking for 5 new folks to begin giving through direct deposit. The second goal is this. Maybe you've been giving through direct deposit, but your capacity has grown and you want your generosity to match your capacity. We're looking for 10 people to grow their giving. And then third, we are looking for 10 people to give a year-end gift as the year is ending here. It doesn't matter if it's 10,000 or 10 bucks. What matters is that our community is gathering around the mission of Salt House, the love of God whose name is Jesus Christ expressed to all people. So what you are giving towards is the transformation that I'm seeing in people's lives every week. People who are coming out of their isolation and joining with others in this community. People who are experiencing transformation in their stories. People who are sharing their gifts with one another and serving the greater community. It's amazing what happens when we give Salt House. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being such a faithful community.
But I've been privileged to hear this story just kind of unravel a little bit over the last couple years over some scotch and some cigars by an outdoor fire at Smit's place in Woodinville, where he's hosted men's group for quite a while in the past. And Smit is a dear brother, and he cares deeply, and it's going to come through to you this morning. So Smit, will you come and share your story with Salt House? And we're going to give him all the love and support here. How's that?
I think I'm good. Cool. Good morning, everyone. See how this goes. Public speaking has been a joy of mine for nearly 20 years. Didn't come easy, but it's a lot easier now. However, for your sake and mine, I've reduced this talk down to print in order to save time and not to go down any rabbit holes. In the beginning, while I was in law school in California, my girlfriend Elizabeth and I moved in together in 1987. Dates are important to this story. Approximately 9 months later, we were married on August 3rd, 1988, and within 11 days, my son Zachary was born. I'll let you guys do the math there. The reason I got married is because we were pregnant, and I wanted to give it the old college try. Nearly 3 years later, my daughter Chelsea was born. Our marital relationship was not predicated on any foundation of any form. The person I was married to, for all intents and purposes, was a stranger. I myself was mentally incapable of any kind of relationship. Not only did I not own any relationship tools, but law school was my priority. To say my marriage was caustic is a gross understatement. After 4 years, 4 months, and 10 days, not that I was counting, multiple therapy sessions, on a cold night in December, I made a midnight move out of the family home, leaving my 1.5-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son behind. I was distraught. Boy, I thought I'd get further into this without this. Shortly after my midnight move, Elizabeth took all the funds from our joint bank accounts. At the age of 34, I found myself working full-time, separated from my family, attending law school 3 nights a week, and no money. I spent the Christmas season of 1992, in the Berkeley Hills in my 1986 Dodge Colt, homeless, lost, broke, and broken. This was rock bottom. How did I fall so far so effortlessly? I was the living definition of a full-time employed homeless person. Sure, I had a law degree and a degree from UC Berkeley, but they weren't working for me. I had many friends in the Bay Area, but I was too ashamed to reach out. My pride, or what was left of my pride, kept me from reaching out and made me feel abandoned without hope. The divorce papers that I was served a week before Christmas was a further catalyst to my desire to end it all. One homeless night in the Berkeley Hills, I kept the car running for a night for warmth, pointed downhill just in case I ran out of gas. The cliff off Grizzly Peak Boulevard was only a few feet away. In uncontrollable anguish, tears, and despair, I turned the steering wheel toward the cliff, put the car in neutral, and released the emergency brake. Gravity would easily propel the car over the edge once I released the foot brake. I awoke sometime later with a huge cramp in my calf. The sun was barely up. I must have fallen asleep for some time as my leg and my foot were still pressing on the brake. It didn't dawn on me at the time, but something kept my leg and my foot pressed on that brake while I slept. My life up to this point was absent of faith, God, or anything higher. I was incapable of accepting any sort of supernatural or spiritual intervention that had kept my car from rolling off the cliff. I just didn't get it. I was in charge of my life, I was in charge of my destiny, and I was in charge of my outcome. The more self-imposed emotional island became even smaller. The more I assumed control, the more my life crumbled. I was a mess. In January 1993, a few weeks after my midnight separation and failed attempt at suicide, I was served additional court papers barring me from seeing my children. An allegation of sexual abuse against my father was to be addressed at family court in Martinez, California. The Piedmont, California Police Department was involved, and Child Protective Services were now involved. Over the next year or so, several more allegations of physical and or sexual abuse were made against me by my soon-to-be, but not soon enough, ex-wife. I had no legal representation, no money, and no alternative but to move back home at the age of 34 with my dad. Rock bottom got even lower. In the early part of 1994, I started putting my life back together just a little bit. I moved out of my dad's place. I moved into a condo that my law school buddy owned. I didn't have to pay rent because he moved because the house was about ready to be foreclosed on at any moment. So I was just waiting. The court had awarded me temporary overnight visitation on every other Saturday with my son. On a sunny Sunday morning in March, Zach and I were at Heather Farms Park in Walnut Creek, where I met 2 women who were playing guitars. One of them was named Trey. After a date or two, Trey invited me to attend her church, her Lutheran church in Walnut Creek. No way. Church was for broken people who needed to trust in something beyond themselves. This God thing made no sense to me. But Trey had invited me. I was worthy of an invitation. So the following week, I attended the church for the first time in my life. There were these old gray-haired people singing these ancient songs from the Dark Ages in a choir about Jesus and this other God stuff. They also had this chanting thing before serving communion. Blood, life, death, drink, eat. This church stuff was way too weird and too foreign for me. Growing up, my family never went to church. We were on the lower end of the financial spectrum in a wealthy community called Piedmont, California. My parents had married and divorced one another twice by the age of 13. At 13, I was fending for myself, responsible for even buying my own clothes. My Converse tennis shoes were literally held together with duct tape. I had no self-esteem in high school, zero. I lived with my dad. I was the only white kid with an afro. No amount of dippity-doo or chemicals could hold my hair down. I wanted to have a part in my hair like the other cool kids. This lack of self-esteem and confidence resided in me until my third visit to St. Matthew Lutheran Church in Walnut Creek. A young pastor invited me back to the church for a chat. I told him I didn't get this faith thing. I couldn't touch it, I couldn't see it, I couldn't feel it. I didn't get it. But he said something to me that became the foundation of my faith journey. He said, Mike, that's what they used to call me back in the olden days. He said, Mike, don't try to learn the faith. Let the faith learn you. I'm going to repeat that. Don't try to learn the faith, but let the faith learn you. Wow, that took the burden off. In other words, don't necessarily dwell in or read the Bible just yet, which was good because I've been to law school. I hated reading. I didn't want to read anything more. He said, immerse yourself into the community of St. Matthew, and you will learn about faith. Hence, my faith journey began. On the look back, Trey's invitation saved me and saved my life. When I awoke from my emotional suicidal storm in Oakland Hills in December of 1992, I thought I had reached bottom. Oh no, I had to drop even further. From January 1993 to December of 1997, Trey and I were engaged, unengaged, and then re-engaged, and stayed together during the most trying times any new relationship could endure. I fought a never-ending battle for the right to see and be a parent to my two kids. I was awarded more time with the kids. I was awarded more time with the kids until the next allegation came up. This allegation pattern continued for 5 years. During the next 5 years, excuse me. During the next 5 years, there were a total of 13 allegations of sexual and/or physical abuse against me. There were 5 different police departments involved in 2 separate counties. My children's mother had moved the kids from one therapist to another. After 9 therapists, 2 special masters, multiple court appearances, 4 different schools, and 4 to 5 changes of address, I took the advice of others and finally filed for full legal and physical custody sometime in the summer of 1997. The court date was scheduled for December 19th, 1997. Leading up to this court date, a few things had occurred. On December 10th, I was supposed to pick up my kids for a visitation, but their mother would not let them leave the house. The Antioch Police Department, which is in California, would not enforce the exchange. I saw Zachary and Chelsea peering through the screen door, but their mother refused to open the door. I was getting calls at the time from the kids' schools telling me that they were truants. Crazy. Rock bottom was about to get lower again. On December 16th, 3 days earlier, while at home and living with Trey at the time, I received a knock on the door. It was our neighbor, Angie. In shock and in tears, distraught, she handed me a flyer that had been mailed to our home. The flyer stated that a child molester by the name of Michael Smith was in the neighborhood, complete with our address and a copy of my driver's license. Trey and I walked through the neighborhood to find out that the flyers had been mailed to all the homes in our immediate neighborhood. We called the police. They too had been informed of the flyer and had sent several officers into the neighborhood to retrieve them. While at the police department later that afternoon, finding out I had no recourse for the attack on my person, my integrity, or my reputation, the police could do nothing. At that point, I decided if nothing came out of this upcoming court hearing in 3 days on the 19th, I was done. I couldn't fight this kind of a fight. It was beyond my capability. My rock bottom got even lower. In fact, I was bottomed out, or so I thought. On the morning of the court hearing, December 19th, where I was to finalize my full custody, Elizabeth and her attorney were a no-show. The judge referred the case to the afternoon calendar. On the way back from lunch, I saw Trey, who I thought was working at the time, down about 30 miles away, running down the street toward me, yelling at me, "Smit, Smit, she took the kids, she took the kids." One of my worst days. Trey had received a phone call from her ex-husband, who was an FBI agent in San Francisco. Elizabeth had mailed a folder to him at the FBI stating that she had taken the kids, never to be found, never to be returned. My worst fear was unfolding. You see, I had court-approved restraining orders preventing my ex-wife from moving out of the county, changing therapists, changing the kids' schools, and finally, changing the special master. Unbeknownst to me, my ex-wife pulled passports for the children. Sorry about this. In August of 1997, and on December 16th, 1997, the same day as the flyers had been mailed out to the neighborhood, my ex-wife, in violation of those court orders, parentally abducted my 2 children. My world was shattered again. This was the nightmare of nightmares. Another Christmas in shambles. Another rock bottom. I remember screaming, "Come on, God, if you're there, make it stop." The FBI issued a UFAP warrant, which is an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution warrant for Elizabeth. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Polly Klaus Foundation got involved. I handed out kidnap flyers at 4 different airports in the Bay Area. I looked at every parking stall on every level of those airports. Nothing. I spent every waking moment online. Now remember, this is 97. There wasn't too much online at the time, but nevertheless online. But I'm not technically oriented, but I did what I could. And, oh my God, I'm going to need something. I looked at every parking stall on every level, nothing. I spent every waking moment online, on the phone, networking, looking for my kids. Through that search, I found out that the kids had gone through the Sacramento airport and flew to Atlanta, Georgia to meet Faye Yeager and her illegal group called the Children of the Underground. This abduction had been planned for months. It had been choreographed, all the way down to the folders that were mailed to the FBI, to the court, to the Child Protective Services in Contra Costa County and beyond. Let me digress a moment in time. Remember that church I was talking about, St. Matthew, back in the time? I actually joined that church in 1994. I did what that pastor advised. I embraced the community. Over the years, I learned to pray. Throughout the custody battle, allegations, and not being able to see my kids, I had one prayer and one prayer only: God, please give me peace. The community of St. Matthew was praying for me, Trey, her son Aaron, and for my kids and our families. In January 1998, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had contacted me about a guarded compound in Costa Rica that sheltered women and children, as was documented by a show at the time called Frontline. Trey's ex-husband, the FBI agent, people, you can't make this stuff up. Trey's ex-husband, FBI agent, also knew of the illegal group in Atlanta, Georgia called Faye Yeager's Children of the Underground. I'm going to go off page here. Trey's ex-husband, Joe, and I got along famously. I mean, we became friends and are friends to this day. He was a great source. Couldn't give me any information, but he was there. I watched the recorded Frontline episode and decided to go search for the kids in Costa Rica. The morning I left, ooh boy, here we go. The morning I left, before I left, I found myself in the shower. I don't want to get too weird on you, but by this time I had lost so much weight, I had dropped 25 pounds and was at 155 pounds, my high school weight. I was exhausted. I was grieving. I was obsessively trying to control the outcome I wanted. I was trying to control the outcome that I wanted. As the water was washing over my body, I began to cry uncontrollably. I collapsed to the floor in the shower. Was this the bottom? Was this rock bottom? Whew. I can't go any lower, God. I've been praying for peace for so long. And I was on the shower floor, crumpled to the shower, and all of a sudden I felt this white light coming up through my feet, to my ankles, to my calves, and through my body, and through my whole body, and I began to stand. And as the water was cascading over my body, I stopped crying, and I heard God say, audibly, Smit, open your eyes. You have peace. You have peace. At that moment, I didn't grasp the full meaning of those words. I know I was in the presence and embrace of God at that moment. I remember deciding right then and there that I was going to go to Costa Rica and see this thing through. But if I didn't find my kids, I was going to trust God that He had this thing under control. To have two kids with a faith and say, I can't do this anymore. I can't control this anymore. I can't do this. God, you take the kids. These are your kids. You take them. You're in control. I can't do this anymore. I turn my kids over to God. This meant I didn't have to be in control, which is not my way of life. This is not funny, people. My faith journey was evolving into something unimaginable, but this was not the kind of peace I had been praying for.
And so the big question of this movement 3, the big question for you is this: do you know why you do what you do? Do you know why you do what you do? Because whether you know it or not, the shape of our shatterings will always drive your search. The shape of your shattering will always drive your search. So do you know why you do what you do?
Kind of hits home a little bit, huh? The authorities informed me that there were some not so nice people in Costa Rica waiting for American men to come through the airport looking for their children. So I had decided to go Jason Bourne and disguise myself. I attempted to dye what little hair I had blonde. I always wanted to be a blonde. But instead, Smit happens, it came out orange. Additionally, the night before I left, due to crying, a blood vessel blew in my eye. Remember, I'm supposed to be going incognito. After landing in Costa Rica and visiting the not-so-clean bathroom that did not have toilet seats on the toilets, I had to improvise. I'll let you work your imagination there. When I was done, I ran to meet my airport guide running through the dilapidated airport in Costa Rica with orange hair, a closed eye with a bursted blood vessel, and streams of toilet paper hanging out my ass. Needless to say, I did not find my kids in Costa Rica. After hearing God's voice in the shower, I began to embrace my faith in earnest. Trey and I married in September 1998. She was the interim music director before Jason Bennixon came on board at St. Matthew Lutheran Church. She invited me to sing in the choir, the worship band, and handbells. After a while, Trey gently, lovingly suggested that maybe music wasn't my spiritual gift after all. But she did witness that I had a way with high school youth and that maybe I should check that out. I ended up working with the high school youth, men's ministry, and small groups for 15 years. I'm wearing this sweatshirt because this is one of the sweatshirts we had when I was working with the high school youth in Mexico. I was still looking for my kids. I wondered what they were being told about me. I wondered where they were. Every day, every hour, every week, all the time. The same questions were asked of me from others, repeating my own questions. It never goes away, the wondering where they are or how they are doing. I had news articles written about my story. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and I have become well acquainted with one another, unfortunately. I traveled the country speaking to various district attorney groups about the importance of enforcing the laws in the cases of parental abductions. But God continued to lead me into ministry and my faith grew. I also realized over time that my prayers had been answered, although not the way I had expected or envisioned. I had found peace. I had an amazing wife who had an amazing son, Aaron, and a faith community praying for my kids and for us. I left rock bottom behind me, held on to my faith, and peace was the result. I was okay, oddly. It's odd to say, but I began to like myself for the first time. In August of 2010, I was informed by the FBI that Zachary had contacted the U.S. authorities. He had sought entry into the U.S. from somewhere. When I asked where they had been and if I could see him, I was told he did not want to see me. A few months later, I was informed that Chelsea, too, had returned to the U.S. She did not want to see me either. Whatever narrative they had been told had taken hold, and I felt like I lost them all over again. I had no parental rights, none. They were now legal adults. So I contacted Jason Bennixon, who was the music director at St. Matthew at the time, and who knew a thing or two about making videos. In the off chance that they ever went looking for me, I wanted this video out there just in case. Well, Zach, Chelsea, I'm going to speak to the two of you. I found out about 5 days ago that the FBI had finally found the two of you. I want you to know that this entire time, since December 19th, 1997, I have loved you. I have never stopped thinking about you. I think about you daily, and I miss you. That is from the heart. I now reach out to you in this form of video as one last attempt to try and make contact with you. I want to let you know what my thoughts are and what I've come to know. Prior to your mom taking you through the Children of the Underground, Faye Yeager's group in December of '97, up until that time, there were 13 allegations of abuse, sexual, physical, verbal abuse, leveled by your mother against me. There were 5 different police departments involved. There were countless court cases, court hearings. There were 2 full, complete evaluations. In the month of November and December of 1997, I was beginning to seek full, complete legal and physical custody of the two of you. I've been advised to do so by therapists and by counselors and also by the court. At no time do I believe that your mom ever loved you any less or any more than me. I think your mom in her own right loved you and felt like she had to do what she had to do. But when things started getting bad and your mother started leveling these allegations more and more, I was left with no other alternative. The school system had considered you as truants, and I needed to move forward. But what I would like to do now is just kind of tell you a little bit about me, where I am, what I do, and as a way for you to know a little bit about me. In 1995, I became a Christian. For the first, 30 some odd years of my life, I was not a Christian. Not a good guy, it's just not a good guy. But since then, since 1995, I've found this community of faith called St. Matthew Lutheran Church here in Walnut Creek. And all these people at St. Matthew, hundreds upon hundreds, in fact, even more so across the nation, even out to Japan, have been praying for the two of you, that God's peace and grace would be on the two of you, and that your hearts would be filled with joy, and hopefully at some point in time reaching out to me. I do not harbor any ill will towards you for not wanting to contact me. You are as much a victim of this circumstance as I. I have no idea what the two of you have been through for the past 13 years, where you may have been anywhere in the world, what you have gone through, who or what you've experienced. I have no idea, just my imagination has run rampant. Maybe seeing this video that you'll start feeling that, you know what, maybe this guy who you may have been told is a bad guy isn't necessarily such a bad guy. I don't need to defend myself because I know I am a man of God and I know who I am. I know what I represent. My prayer is that within the next couple weeks, couple months, or even couple years, that you will think about this. You will pray about this, that you will find a way to reach out and contact me. I don't know what more to say other than, again, that I love you, I miss you, and I want to see you. God bless. I haven't seen that video since 2010 when Jason and I created it. When I decided to do this talk and I was asked to do the talk, Jason came up with a great idea. Why don't we take it and condense it down? Up until this moment, I hadn't heard it, so I didn't know what was in it. In 2015, Trey and I had moved here to Washington as her son and wife were having a baby. We wanted to live close to our grandkids. The following year, I was contacted by the Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office that Elizabeth, the abductor, was going to be let back into the country with no consequences, no jail time, nothing. That pretty much ended the last sliver of hope I had of ever seeing my kids again. I trusted that God had my children in His hands. I had to trust. There wasn't an alternative. Oddly, I fell into a heightened sense of peace. The hole in my heart for my children was still there and was filled with hundreds, but it was filled with hundreds of high school kids that I'd come to know, who have now grown up, have getting married, and who still stayed in contact with me. And if you ever worked with high school youth, they all get married and they always want you to come to the wedding, so you're always going to these weddings. Additionally, our niece Kimber lived with us for about 5 years while she was in high school and college, and she was a daughter to me. Tragically, Kimber lost her life in 2009 to osteosarcoma. She has a rock here in the Memorial Garden just outside Salt House. The impact of Kimber's death began to spiral me away from God. What more did He want me to endure? 2 children abducted, 1 dead. My faith shattered beyond belief. I made feeble attempts at revival. I started coming to Salt House. Ryan contacted me and said, "Hey, Smit, do you think you want to lead a men's group?" I said no. I said no 3 times. Count my fingers. 3 times I said no. But I did. But nothing seemed to break the wall that was around my heart. I couldn't find God, and I had turned my back. Speed forward to February 26th of this year. It had been months, absolutely months, since I had been to church. I had been in California for the prior 7 weeks, starting January 1st, working on a house that we had purchased down there. But after 7 weeks, I came home to Woodinville for a respite. At that same time, Trey was flying to California. We were 2 ships passing in the wind. She was planning on attending our old church at St. Matthew Lutheran. She hadn't been there since Kimber's service, I think November 2019. After many months, I felt compelled for some reason and was looking forward to going to Salt House to go to church. It was that Sunday morning. I was in it. I was going to do it. 8:05 a.m., February 26th. I was in the hot tub, my typical routine. The phone rang. It was a 415 area code from the Bay Area. 415. Oh, it must have been a real estate call. So I turned the hot tub jets off. I answered, "Hello?" There was this pause. "Is this Michael?" Actually, "Is this Michael?" "Yes." There was another pause. "Is this Michael Smith?" "Yes." A little bit longer pause. "May I ask who's calling?" Silence. "This is Chelsea." "Okay, do I know you?" The voice said, "I hope so. This is Chelsea Smith." Holy shit. After 9,209 days of separation, I heard from my kid. My world stopped. I mean, literally stopped. Is this real? I do not remember breathing. I had a million questions. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to say. In this 35-minute call, I realized I needed to trust, that trust needed to be built on both sides before any meaningful questions could get answered. I had so many questions, but I had to refrain from asking all 10,000 of them at that time. Chelsea and I started talking daily, weekly, sometimes over Zoom, sometimes texting, sometimes over the phone, sometimes all 3 in one day. I learned that she and Zach had seen the YouTube video that Jason had created back in 2010. That was the golden key. For reasons of their own, they started looking for me in January of this year, but kept running into roadblocks. Chelsea found me through good old detective skills on the internet. She said that Zach would that I would also be hearing from my son Zachary soon. Do you want to hold on to these things? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Start over. Sorry for the respite there, people. I received an email from Zach on March 8th, a couple of weeks later, who was living in Stuttgart, Germany, and was there with the U.S. Army. He was a first sergeant over there. The email started off, quote, "This is Zach, your son. I apologize for the late letter." Are you freaking kidding me? That's the understatement of the decades, right? In that one email, I found out I had 2 grandchildren and a daughter-in-law named Natalia. Instant family, add air. Over the winter and spring of this year, my children and I slowly began building trust with each other and learning more about one another. Even though these were my children, aged 34 and 31, they were complete strangers. Chelsea flew up from Nashville, where she was living, and stayed a week with us in April. During that time together, we dipped our toe into the past, and Chelsea began to unravel her past in an effort to learn the truth. Chelsea has now moved to Washington and is staying with us in the studio we have on our property. We are slowly learning about one another in healthy ways. It hasn't been without our bumpy moments. Trey and I traveled to Germany last month to meet Zach and his family. At the airport, after 27 years, for you parents, I heard the best word in the English language: Dad. Our time in Germany was a wealth of quality time, relationship building, trust, and honesty. Our whole family has a long journey of healing ahead of us right now. We're taking it day by day. In 2019, after Kimber's premature death, I turned away from God. I had a really hard time coming to grips that why God would permit and allow Kimber, a beautiful angel and devoted servant of God, to die an egregious death at such a young age. I took her death very personally, as she was the closest thing to whom I could call daughter. Last month, while visiting my son in Germany, after nearly 27 years of separation, on the way back on the plane, I started to understand. God's timing in this story is absolutely perfect. It's not what I wanted, people. It wasn't my timing, but his timing was perfect. No, I had prayed for peace. Somewhere along the way of doing life, I found that peace. Everything that has occurred in my life up until this moment right now, finding God, the excruciating custody fight, having my children taken from me, doing ministry, losing Kimber, turning away from God, all of it has prepared me for this moment. This important moment of healing for myself and for my 2 children and the rest of our family. I turned my back on God, but I never stopped pursuing me. But he never stopped pursuing me and preparing me for my kids for this time that we are in now. I am, as we all are, a work in progress. He just has to work a little bit harder on me. I still have a ways to go in my faith journey. My story is unfolding even as I speak today. My chains are gone. I have been set free. Amen? Amen. Thanks.